again, I want to emphasize, and if I didn't make myself clear the last time we talked about this, is ketogenic diet is the only diet in medical history that actually cures anything. It was developed by an MD to cure seizure disorder or epilepsy at the time. People were having phenomenal results with that. And what the ketogenic diet does is when you switch from burning sugar for energy compared to carbs for energy, and sugar, if you stop burning sugar for energy, you start using fat instead, you're turning off the bad DNA and cleaning out all that toxic fat that's clogging up your organs, your liver, your gallbladder, your heart, your lungs, your thyroid, So that's huge. And so why not just go with science on it and do something and quit wasting your time instead of just confronting the ketogenic diet and actually doing it. Ketogenic diet is nothing, you don't want to be in ketosis all the time, but you want to cycle in and out of ketosis, and that's the key. And that way you can enjoy some of the foods you want periodically and still maintain good health. So why not simply try the ketogenic diet, because it does work. Mm-hmm. So it changes lives. We've had a lot of good results in our clinic with people with cancer that have turned around cancer. And again, I educate people that have cancer and people that don't have cancer. So I recommend this diet to people that have cancer and people that don't have cancer. It's just a healthy diet, and it's just a healthy way of getting rid of all that garbage fat that's clogging up your organs, full of that bad DNA. And that bad DNA are the things that are turning on cancer and inflammatory diseases. And why not just clean yourself out of that?
Nice. So with looking at keto from a performance point of view, like an athlete's point of view, is it conducive for that too? Or do carbs or even protein become more important when the specific goal is athletic performance? Or can you check that box with ketogenic diet as well?
You sure you can, because they even recommend exercise programs where you maybe going out to a football field and running a 30-yard dash as fast as you can, and then walking for 10, 15 seconds, and then repeating that 30-yard dash. That sprinting, resting, that back and forth like that with exercise allows you to burn fat all day long, compared to that guy that's on a treadmill in a gym that's running on a Stairmaster or on a treadmill for an hour. Somebody that's out there spending 15 minutes on a football field is burning fat all day, where that same guy on a treadmill in a gym looks the same when you see him 6 months from now. Mm-hmm. So it's huge to do what we used to call in the 70s interval training. Just a series of fast-moving exercises by a short rest period, back and forth. It's phenomenal.
Right. So, then maybe carbs are a little overrated then in training, because what it seems, or like a lot of what I hear people say, especially now kind of working on my personal training, is they say the more activity you have, the more carbs you're going to need, because it's the fastest. They say it's the fastest way to get energy into the bloodstream.
But we're not saying no carb here. We're saying reduce your carbs. And it's still, carbs put glycogen back in your liver. Mm-hmm. So if you look at most ketogenic programs, especially the one by Dr. Axe and Jordan Rubin with Ancient Nutrition, they have programs in there where diets that you're getting into ketosis and diets that you're maintaining when you're not in ketosis. And so those diets when you're not in ketosis involve some carbs. And that's the way you put glycogen back in the liver. But your body can make sugar out of protein. So it can put glycogen back in your liver, because you can convert protein into carbs in your diet.
Right.
If the body needs it.
So glycogen, I'm glad you brought that up. Can glycogen also be stored in the muscle itself, or is it only in the liver?
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that one. That's something I'll have to research and get back to you on that one, maybe another blog down the road. But
for sure.
I know for sure that the liver will store glycogen.
And with glycogen, is it true that glycogen is basically just a much more complex sort of chemical form up of a sugar? Like what's the difference, let's say, between glucose and glycogen? And are they different in how they supply energy?
It's just an end product of eating carbs.
Okay.
So when you're creating glycogen, it's the body just using it to store in the liver for a quick source of energy.
Okay.
Doesn't have to do anything to break it down. It's ready to roll for energy.
Right. So, and then one other just kind of general question on carbs. This is something that's talked a lot about in fitness and in when the goal is fat loss specifically, which so when people start a fitness regimen, at least in the United States, it seems like fat loss is almost always the number one priority, even over muscle building, which seems kind of ironic to me because if you build muscle, it makes it easier to burn fat.
Right.
So, but anyways, that's kind of a side point. When it comes to carbohydrates, what's the difference between a fast digesting and a slow digesting carb, or a high glycemic, or a carb with a high glycemic index versus a low glycemic index, and what effect does that have on fat loss? Because it's a carb, it's not fat, but does it affect fat loss, and how so?
Yeah, sugar that breaks down quickly in the body is more likely to store as fat. We talked about earlier the slow burning carbs, the body has more of a chance to deal with them. That's why when I ever tell people to come to our juice bar and they're getting a juice that has fruit in it, for example, like maybe some oranges or strawberries or bananas and stuff like that, have a little fat with it, because fat is your way of slowing down how the body burns sugar. That's kind of like what I always tell my older customers. That's why Grandma always put lard in the pie crust, because fat slows down how you metabolize sugar. This really isn't rocket scientist, and I don't want to get very complex on this because there's no need to get complex. Just try the ketogenic diet, get into ketosis and see how much better you feel.